I'm Brett Hautop, and I have a new consulting business for around workplace. It's called Workshape, and the concept is helping companies figure out the shape of their workplace. So my clients are corporate end users, real estate facilities teams, some C-suites, but also real estate developers, office developers, some design firms who don't typically do workplace, who are trying to get outside of the workplace they used to do and trying to think about it differently. And then also organizations, universities, things like that. Pretty much everybody that's dealing with like, where do we go from here? And so my belief is that if people just start to ask better questions up front, create stronger problem statements, what in the world are we actually trying to solve for?
Yep.
Because I think we've all been doing the same thing for so long. And even pre-pandemic, I was very vocal about the fact that I thought our workplaces should be doing more than they were. And the response I would usually get is, yeah, well, I don't disagree with you, but I don't have any time to deal with that. Just get me more of it. So it was more space, pack everybody tighter. We were getting more and more dense by the month, literally by the month. And
Wow.
most companies were. They were just trying to keep up. We knew it made no sense. We knew nobody wanted to be there, but we kept doing more of it. And not only doing more of it, we're doing every year was faster and bigger. And so we were testing lots of things back then, 3, 4 years ago. Like, well, what else can we do with the workplace? What other types of experiences we did? The outdoor office experience or experiments. We started trying new space types, new furniture systems, anything that was just trying to push the envelope to get past this model of everybody comes into the office, drops their stuff at a desk, and then sits in a conference room all day. Which in a funny way, it's like we've now moved to, well, I just skipped that first part, but I just stay at my desk and I'm on conference calls all day. And so finding time for yourself, and you hear people say all the time, I'm so glad these meetings are over. Now I can actually get work done. It's a really odd thing to say because
Yeah.
it's basically admitting that now no work, in a lot of these meetings, work is not getting done. And so one of the big things I want to do is help companies start to get way further upstream in their thinking process before they even talk about space or a space program or services or anything. What are they trying to do for their employees? And that's, what is the value that the workplace can bring to employees? And that's also something that most people don't talk about. They may talk about the cost of the workplace or any services associated with it. But they're not talking about what is the value that this brings to either the individuals or to the company.
So the answer to that question, what is the value that it brings? Is that a very nuanced, company-centric answer, or is that answer universal across companies? What
No,
do
I
you
think that
think?
answer is so incredibly nuanced and specific that it's not just different company by company, but it might be different company by location by team.
Mm,
So if there are some overarching things that as a company, this is what we believe, and this is the value we're looking for the workplace to bring and to drive. And then it may be, but below that, here's some general loose framework about the types of value we think it should bring. But really, it's going to be up to the teams to decide if they really want it to be high functioning. And it's going to be, then you get to this level of, okay, is a manager, if a manager of 50 prescribes that their team should be doing things a certain way, whether that means coming, seeing each other in person, how much time or what they're doing when they're there. But another manager of 50 may have a very different solution. Whether or not it's valuable really comes down to the specific work that team is doing. And then, frankly, it could change over time.
hmm.
What you need to do for the next 3 months. One instance, pre-pandemic, when teams would do these 2 week sprints, product teams in software development, 2 week sprints to like everybody's got to get together and nail this last bit of code, the last details of the product development to launch it. They would ask for either their own space or they would take over a conference room, set up all their computers in the conference room side by side, cover the walls with paper, and they would do these, with 12, 14, 16-hour days, never leave the room
Wow.
because they just wanted to get super engaged with one another and interact and connect in a way that if they're out in the wild and they're where they normally sit, they're getting distracted, other people are being involved. And so sometimes that had to do with confidentiality, but most of it had to do with we just need these teams to really connect in a way that it's hard to do unless they're this intently focused on one another. So that was something that we did that happened pre-pandemic, but is an example of how a very specific purpose and need, giving them that room and setting it up that way, brought them the value of they could get to solutions faster than in their typical daily routine and the way they did things.
Yeah.
And I think that's what there needs to be more of, is that intentionality around what is it that you're trying to solve for? What are you trying to solve for in terms of culture? What are you trying to solve for in terms of learning and development, of creating an equitable situation for the individuals on a team? So how do you do all this and still make it so that no matter where anybody's working or how they're working, they feel like they're part of it, an equal part of the process and the solution? And in that is wrapped up all sorts of things about, if you say, I want everybody to do whatever's best for them, at some point you have to make a decision about, well, there are certain things that are better for the team, and they may take more work and they may require personal sacrifice from you, but this is what I'm asking you to do. And I think when people are thoughtful about that and they have real clear reasons and motives behind the ask that they're making of employees to try and get them to participate in something, usually in person, if it's genuinely a need, people will respond positively and affirmatively, and they're only going to not come if they just can't do it for some reason.
Yeah.
But they'll have the intention of, I want to. If it's hollow and the request is just because they can tell you just don't like, they work differently than you, and then they're going to respond with just not showing up. And so then you're going to say, well, what was the value in me doing that? What was the value in me coming in? But if it's something that had that value already built into it, you get it and you go, I would love to do that again. Because it meant something to me. I got something out of it. And whether it was the big picture or some little tiny thing of running into somebody and solving some problem, and you said, well, realistically, I probably never would have come to that solution or conclusion because me and this other person don't ever interact in the hybrid, in the remote, not in the office world.
Yeah.
But the fact that we know each other, we haven't seen each other in months, and we ran into each other, and it sparked something. That is the sort of stuff that then, those are the intangible things on top of that. Okay, this is why we're here.
Yeah.
Because I've had a lot of people say things to the effect that, well, we're all missing out on that serendipity of just running into people. I'm like, well, I agree, we are, but that is a hard sell to sell somebody come in.
I want you to be here to accidentally run.
And you may or may not. And you may do it 50 times and only happen once.
Right.
Or you may have 5 things happen in one day. I can't tell you what's going to happen, but I need you to do that just to let it happen.
Yeah.
But I think that comes back to, and it's another really counterintuitive, contradictory thing. Talk about, it's hard to be, somebody else in their company says that efficiency has no place in innovation.
Huh.
And which I kind of love. But the idea that I've been saying for a while, we're too efficient right now. We're too focused, one thing after another, and there's really no time to disconnect, to let your brain think freely. Somebody said it in one of our talks this morning that most CEOs get 15 minutes a day to actually think.
Yeah.
It comes back to the idea of, I'm in meetings all day, now I get to work. I think this is where we got to get to, is this understanding of, I'm coming in for these particular reasons, but I have an open mind about what else might happen. And I'm creating room and space for me to just be here and be okay with that. But it's so hard in the way things are set up now because and most people don't have control. I think it's something like a vast majority of people have no control over their calendar. So I love that idea. Tell my manager, how am I supposed to do that? Because I've got these meetings back to back and they start at 8 a.m. I'm not getting up and leaving my house at 6:45 to get there, to run in, to have to fight for a parking space, to get in and to go sit in a conference room and do this. So it's all interconnected, and it's what's so hard about it, because there's also I don't know, are you asking me because you don't trust me? Do you not trust me to do the work? And I think that's why there have to be far more conversations and intentionality around, this is why we think it's valuable. This is what we're asking of you. This is what we're giving you, and this is what we want in return. And I think as soon as there's that sort of agreement, then you can start to find out, well, did it actually bring the value that I thought it was going to?
Part of the consulting that you're doing is it probably around this communication. Mm-hmm. I want to get back into Workshape, mm-hmm. because at the beginning you talked about the importance of questions and how we're not asking the right questions. So as you begin to think, how you engage with companies through Workshape, what are those key questions that you start with? Like, do you have kind of
For,
a walk down that you do?
yeah, well, one of the first questions is, so why do you have a workplace anyway? And it's not with the presumption that you shouldn't or you should. It's just trying to be very genuine. Why do you have a workplace? If I said, and you could ask the same thing of a lot of retailers, why do you have a store? And well, we do just as much business online as we do in the store. Okay, well then a lot of your revenue comes from that. There's a lot of businesses, a lot of retail businesses that have had a really hard time letting go of retail space that's underperforming, or they've gone to a model where all they have is kind of a showroom
Sure.
or a lifestyle space where you can see and feel and understand and experience it. They're not selling it there anymore. I've been to a couple stores where you literally can't buy anything at the store. It's just to see it in action because it's better than seeing it online, or it's in addition to being able to see
Right.
it online. I think that's where we're at right now.
Are you getting satisfying answers to that question?
At this point, a couple months in, I've had the conversation with a handful of companies, and the response I typically get is, "That's a really good question." And so now it's about dissecting it and figuring out how to actually help them answer it, because most people can't answer it,
Yeah.
or they have the obligatory knee-jerk response. Well, just because we need places to come together, and that's how we do it, or we always have. And a lot of it has to do with, well, this is just what we've always done. We've been doing this way over 100 years.
Yeah, that's, oh my gosh. When you put that perspective around it, holy crap. I mean, we have a lot of soul searching to do.
We do. And it's like, and we're expecting us to figure this out overnight when it took this long to get where we're at, and so many evolutions and iterations over that period of time. But human beings are still exactly the same. We haven't evolved in 2 years. We have adopted different behaviors, and we have different perception of what's possible and what we should be allowed to do, or what we want to do. That genie is out of the bottle, but we're still fundamentally we are fundamentally the same creatures. We just have a different perception of that. And I don't think most companies, most organizations have not taken the time to start with, why do we have a workplace? And then start to understand, okay, well, if this is why we have a workplace, then what are we trying to solve for? And if you try and break it down into create a problem statement, this is something I did a lot when I was at LinkedIn and working with design firms. And I would get into the project, some way, third of the way into the project, and I would kind of try and shake things up. And I would ask the whole team, my team, the internal team, the external team. If you've seen in the movie Big, when Tom Hanks is the toy guy, and he's like, I don't get it. And he's like, what don't you get? It's a toy. I don't get it. He just keeps saying it over and over because he was a kid at heart, and he didn't understand how that was fun. And so all he could think to say is, I don't get it. So I would start playing that role and saying, well, I don't understand. Why are we doing this? Well, because we need this many square feet. Okay, but why do you need that many square feet? Well, because we have this. Why do you think those people are going to do this? So why are we doing this again? And you would get back to the reality of, you're so hung up in the details of what you have conceived of and you're ready to deliver. But you should ask yourself, like, should we have been doing this in the first place? Yeah. Is this something that was actually going to bring value to us? Or are we doing it just because we always have, or just because someone felt like we needed it? And I think so getting people to start there seems almost overly basic or too fun. It's like, okay, well, that's kind of silly. You're just asking a question. No, it's a very important question to answer. Yeah. To be able to say, this is why we have a workplace. And then with that in mind, this is what we're trying to solve for. If you said, we're trying to solve for the fact that we are more innovative when we're around each other in person. Okay. Well, then let's figure out how we create a situation where people can be more innovative. Then you start to get to, how do you measure it? How do you know, did the result of you doing this and asking people to make these sacrifices and personal commitments actually lead to more innovation? Some of these things are easier said than done, a lot easier said than done. And when you start to say things like attrition and retention, and productivity, happiness, employee sentiment, tying those things specifically and directly to the workplace or the workplace experience that's just one factor in amongst many. So part of the other thing that I do in talking with companies is talk about, how are they set up? How are they organized? What are the key parts and pieces within their ecosystem that they need to start bringing in this conversation? And I was saying at a session a little while ago, your HR team, if you don't belong to HR right now, if you're still part of the finance org or something else, you need to bring those folks in a major way, and they need to be part of this conversation. Your communications team needs to be a major part of this.
Yeah.
Because this is all about understanding employees, talking to employees, teaching employees, engaging employees, helping employees learn. And those are things the workplace team can't do on its own. And the space itself, no matter how well the space is designed, if it doesn't have all that help and support from those different perspectives and those different skill sets, it's not going to succeed. So helping companies to start to really dissect and think through it. And you could say it's all pretty basic and fundamental, which it is, but these are super challenging questions to answer. And just the fact that you're asking them is a huge first step.
I love it. Well, this was great, Brett. Thank you for joining me.
Yeah,
I love
pleasure.
your philosophy with Workshape and where you're taking things. So
Awesome. Thank you. My pleasure.
thank you. Awesome.